The town of Ravenshade was asleep under a velvet black sky, streets empty, windows dark except for the faint glow of a flickering street lamp by the corner diner. Midnight had a way of magnifying fear, and tonight, that fear was about to consume one family entirely. Marcus Bell had always believed that home was his sanctuary, a modest brick house with white trim, surrounded by the whisper of autumn leaves. He never expected the very people sworn to protect the town to become harbingers of destruction. Inside, his wife, Tasha, was folding laundry, humming a quiet tune that had carried Marcus through some of his darkest days. Outside, in unmarked SUVs, officers whispered over radios, a raid initiated on shaky intelligence they barely understood. They had no idea whom they were about to confront. Marcus, a former Navy SEAL commander, had left the battlefield years ago, traded war zones for PTA meetings and evening jogs, believing his past had finally stayed buried. In mere seconds, the life he knew would rupture, doors would burst open, shouts would echo, and a single fatal mistake, a bullet meant to disable, not wound, would tear through the fragile bubble of safety. Tasha's scream would pierce the night, an unrelenting alarm to a world that had forgotten how quickly chaos could descend. Ravenshade would never forget this night, and neither would Marcus, because sometimes the most dangerous man is the one who has learned to survive the unthinkable and is forced to fight again. The loud crash of the front door jolted Marcus from a deep sleep. The shrill sound of shattering glass echoed like gunfire in the empty hallway. His instincts kicked in instantly. In a heartbeat, he was on his feet, every muscle honed from years of training, his mind calculating the unknown variables faster than anyone could comprehend. "Police, open up!" a voice barked. Marcus froze, listening. The accent of authority was clear, but so was the panic behind it, a sign of inexperienced officers. Footsteps pounded up the stairs. "Marcus, what is it?" Tasha's voice trembled from the bedroom. "Stay down. Don't move," he whispered, moving silently toward the door, his military training blending seamlessly with years of tactical precision. Outside, the officers had deployed their lights, illuminating the house like a target. The street lamps' glow reflected off their badges, their weapons poised. They weren't expecting resistance. They were expecting a suspect, not a man who had spent his life training to survive high-stakes combat. The first officer, eyes wide with adrenaline, shouted a warning, raising his weapon. Then, without warning, the report of a gunshot split the night. The sound was deafening in the small house. Tasha screamed. Marcus felt the strike before he even saw it, her shoulder bleeding, her body crumpling toward the floor. "No! Tasha!" he roared, the world narrowing to a pinpoint of fury. The officers froze, realizing their mistake. The wrong target. The intelligence was flawed. Too late. Marcus's hands were shaking, not from fear, but from the controlled surge of adrenaline that had been his companion in countless battlefields. He moved like a shadow, his training transforming into action. He disarmed the first officer with a move so fluid it seemed preordained, using their momentum against them. Others shouted, some firing blindly, but Marcus was already behind cover, calculating escape points and potential threats with precision. Every decision was lethal, measured, restrained. He wasn't killing recklessly. Outside, neighbors awoke, drawn to the violence with fearful curiosity. From a safe vantage, Marcus assessed the situation. He could call it a night, let the system handle its failure, but he knew the officers involved would escape accountability, swallowed by bureaucratic red tape. Not this time. By the time he stepped outside, the street was a maze of overturned vehicles and flashing red and blue lights. Marcus approached the squad cars, hands raised to show no immediate threat. His calm presence was terrifying, every movement deliberate, every breath measured. "You're making a mistake," he said evenly, voice carrying authority only someone who had commanded men in war could project. "Leave now, and no one else gets hurt." The officers hesitated. Fear rippled through their ranks. They had seen combat simulations, SWAT training, but this was real, and this man, he was different. One officer lunged, gun drawn, and Marcus reacted instinctively. Within seconds, the weapon was knocked aside, the man sprawling to the asphalt. Chaos erupted. Shouts, sirens, and the metallic taste of fear filled the air. Marcus didn't falter. His eyes were locked on his objective: protect Tasha, punish those responsible, and ensure that the failure of that raid would not be repeated. He moved toward the police captain who had just arrived on the scene. "Commander Marcus Bell?" the captain asked, uncertain. One officer lunged, gun drawn, and Marcus reacted instinctively. Within seconds, the weapon was knocked aside, the man sprawling to the asphalt. Chaos erupted. Shouts, sirens, and the metallic taste of fear filled the air. Marcus didn't falter. His eyes were locked on his objective: protect Tasha, punish those responsible, and ensure that the failure of that raid would not be repeated. He moved toward the police captain, who had just arrived on the scene. "Commander Marcus Bell?" the captain asked, uncertain. Tasha, weak but alive, crawled toward him, tears streaking her face. Marcus lifted her into his arms, his gaze scanning the street. Shadows moved in the corners, neighbors peeking cautiously. No one dared intervene, not tonight. Marcus's fury was palpable, a living thing that radiated outward. He drove her to the safe house he had prepared months ago, a contingency he never thought he'd need. The medical supplies were ready, and the antiseptics cleaned the wound as he whispered reassurances. "You're safe now." But Marcus wasn't done. The city's law enforcement thought they could operate above accountability, think themselves untouchable. They had underestimated a man who had seen the worst of humanity and had survived. Now, Marcus would ensure that mistake was paid for, using his network of former SEAL colleagues, intelligence contacts, and tactical specialists. Marcus orchestrated a sequence of events that exposed the rogue officers, their failures, and the corrupted chain of command that allowed the raid to happen. Every leak, every tip to journalists, every recorded interaction was strategically calculated. In the dead of night, Marcus returned to the scene, watching the precinct burn metaphorically under the weight of public outrage. He didn't need to shoot again. The threat of his presence, combined with the undeniable evidence, was enough. Justice had been served, not by the system, but by the man the system had forgotten. Tasha stood beside him, still fragile but growing stronger, holding his hand. "You didn't just save me, you made them pay," she whispered. "I did what had to be done," he said quietly, "and I'll do it again if I have to, but for now, we're alive. That's enough." The night in Ravenshade finally fell silent. The street lamps flickered once, then glowed steadily, as if acknowledging the end of the storm. Marcus knew the reprieve was temporary. Threats always existed, shadows lingered, but for tonight, victory was his, and the system had learned a lesson it would not forget. As dawn broke over Ravenshade, Marcus and Tasha walked hand in hand past the quieted streets, the aftermath of chaos leaving an indelible mark on their lives. The world had seen a Navy SEAL's wrath, and justice had been served, not by chance, but by skill, determination, and an unwavering refusal to let corruption go unchallenged. For those who witnessed this story unfold, remember, courage often hides behind ordinary doors, and heroes can emerge when least expected. If you want more gripping, real-feeling thrillers like this one, subscribe now and stay ready for the next story. The night is full of secrets.